Hi, my name is Jean-Carl, and the event that I had chosen was the murder of an Ethiopian immigrant, Mulujeta Sarah, by local Portland area neo-Nazi skinhead group, and the civil case that arose pointing the finger of liability at the leader of a white power group that had never actually met those skinheads. And so some of the questions that are brought about in this are, what is a skinhead? Um, in a historical context, we don't necessarily hear about skinheads very often. Usually when we think of racism, we think of the Ku Klux Klan or small individual acts, or, I guess, instituted racism, as we've been talking about in class. Um, but so, what is a skinhead? Where do they come from? Why are they racist? Um, and the interesting thing is skinheads didn't actually start out as a racist group. It was a working class movement of the proletariat. It started in Jamaica and was certainly multiracial. There was no room for racism there. It had nothing to do with that. It had to do with supporting the working class. And as it moved to the UK, that was the idea as well. And it kind of really took some root in the punk and ska scene in the UK. And that kind of brought it over from the UK to the US because they had a burgeoning punk and ska scene in California. And so, yeah, we can look at some of the history and the different small movements. We look at this website, One People's Project, History of the Skinheads. But another good source is Globalizing the Streets, Cross-Cultural Perspectives on Youth. And in here they really talk about the early 70s and the punk scenes in California. And some of them in that time were noticing changes, structural and opportunity changes. They were noticing demographic changes. And they weren't feeling like public authorities were addressing the concerns of what they considered white minority. I can't find it right here, but it was on a different page in this book. And this kind of works together with the struggles of the working class in Jamaica and in the UK. And this also works together with the struggles of the German working class, which is what brought about the rise of Nazi power in early World War II, or before World War II. And this book kind of paints the picture and draws those things together, that the youth culture in the punks in California, as well as the youth culture of the punks in the UK, kind of fused together with the hardcore and the kind of in-your-face shock factor value that they could get by using the imagery of the Nazis and some of the ideas of the Nazis. So this all really came together, and this book talks a lot about that, and I'm going to find some really great information about that in here. And it also even talks in here about how that's what Tom Metzger used when recruiting people to his racist viewpoints. He looked toward the punk scenes and he looked towards the skinhead scenes because they were already very hardcore and they had very strong belief systems and they were already concerned about demographic changes in minorities and how that affected the white and the working class. By the way, if I didn't mention it, Tom Metzger is the person who was found civilly liable for the killing of Mulujeta Sarah. But so, yeah, there's a lot of different information, a couple different websites here that really bring this together and put it together. Another book that's mentioned a whole lot by a lot of different sources as being really, really the source to go to when talking about this specific event, the killing of Mulujeta Sarah, is this book, 100 Little Hitlers, by Eleanor Langer. Luckily, I was able to find this on Google Books, so I can actually go through the entire book and find quotes and whatnot. But she was a Portland native, and she lived very close to where this killing happened. So she spent a lot of time, it affected her a lot, so she has spent a lot of time doing research on neo-Nazism in America and around in the Portland area. So there's a lot of information I think that I can gain from this book. she takes kind of an interesting stance that she doesn't feel that that Tom Metzger should have been found civilly liable for this, which a lot of people disagree with strongly. But it is what it is. It's her viewpoint. But either way, she brought a lot of information forward to express that viewpoint. So this book will be really good at filling in some of this. There's also a book I found. Unfortunately, it's not on Google Books, so I can't easily look through it. But there is various resources I can look into. Morris Dees is the prosecuting attorney for Tom Metzger for that whole civil case, and he had put together a book much after the fact. So I ought to be able to find some good information in there too. But these folks don't necessarily draw correlations between punk rockers, skinheads, neo-Nazis, and whatnot. This is just the information on the event itself. So I think that books like this one here, Globalizing the Streets, as well as this Skinheads Guide here, will give a lot of information on where they came from. As we can see here, some of them came from Texas or Chicago or whatnot. I think they were drawn towards Oregon because of its known reputation for being a white utopia, for having policies against minorities and blacks. So a lot of information, a lot of different sites, a lot of different books. I really think this will be able to come together nicely. Stay tuned.